Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sarah. I'll be your technical moderator today. Before we get started, I'd like to just go over a few housekeeping items so you know how to participate in today's event. You have entered this webinar in listen-only mode. That simply means that you are muted so we don't pick up any noise from your end. We do welcome and encourage you to submit your text questions via the questions pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. You can enter your questions at any time and we will save them for a Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you have any technical difficulties or questions, please type them into that same questions pane and I will work with you directly to resolve those as soon as possible. We are recording today's webinar and you will receive a follow-up email that will include access to the recording. By submitting your questions today, you agree to have them read aloud and recorded. All right, without any further ado, I would like to turn things over to Jason Harris, your first speaker today. Welcome, Jason. You now have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you, and good evening, good morning, and hello, everyone. My name is Jason Harris. I am the evangelist at Panoply. Very excited to have you and our panelists here to talk about the latest scoop and how they built their data stack and accelerated insights in their organization. We're very excited to learn. Next slide, please. So who are you going to hear from today? So I introduced myself. I'm the evangelist at Panoply. My name is Jason, and we also have Aron Franz, who is the Technology Alliances Manager at Looker, which is the latest Scoop's business intelligence platform of choice. We are going to have Aron, who is founder and CEO of DataClymer, a boutique service firm that helps companies get up to speed on their data stacks, data insights. And of course, we're going to have Adrian, who is the Director of Operations from The Latest Scoop. The Latest Scoop, if you're not familiar, is a Vancouver, BC-based boutique store that operates on a pop-up model and is looking to expand into different cities in Canada. I won't speak for Adrian. I'll let him do it in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So just to introduce Panoply, just to start, Panoply is a smart data warehouse. We are a cloud-based warehouse that allows you to ingest data from up to 150 sources, or sorry, 150 plus sources, everything from web apps to databases to CSV uploads. So we allow you to bring all of your data into one place so that you can query it, run analyses, and then do data visualization and business insights on top of that. We are a middle layer, and you use us in combination with something like Looker. And you can also, to query and analyze your data, you can use any SQL workbench tool. And we connect and collect all your data sources. We manage the warehouse for you. And we also allow you to bring in stuff from, if you have some sort of an experiment that you're trying and you have a CSV export of data from that, you can bring that in as well. We're lightning fast. We use AI and machine learning to optimize queries and make sure that your warehouse is running as efficiently as it should. And we do stuff like materialized views, which takes any query that's running over and over again. We will materialize that view so that the query and the resulting business intelligence or data visualization on top of that is lightning fast. We can speed up most data visualization tools by upwards of 10x. Next slide, please. So this shows a little picture of kind of the three-step process of getting up to speed with Panoply. On the left, you plug in your data, you bring it in from whatever the source is, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Salesforce, whatever. Bring it in, and we are the warehouse in the middle, the little database icon right in the middle, and then you connect your either your BI tools, a Looker or one of the many others out there on the market on top of that. So we handle all the ELT that is necessary to bring data in. We allow you to have a managed data warehouse, but you don't have to manage it yourself. Our service does that for you. So you can have a fully fledged data warehouse at a very good monthly price, and it runs super fast. And we were always optimizing queries. We like to say that our queries on Panoply are 300% faster, and we make dashboard performance really awesome. Next slide, please. And then one thing is that when you put something together like a Panoply and a Looker, you've got a very fast warehouse and very quick, insightful data visualization. We are a serverless environment, so if your needs scale, we will scale with you. So if you go from 10 users to on your data stack up to 100, we can easily handle that. We're constantly optimizing, and we offer unlimited concurrency. Doesn't matter how many queries you're running, we can handle the load. We will scale up to your needs. Next, to talk about the Looker piece, I'm going to introduce Aron France. Aron, take it away.
Great, thanks. So now I'm just going to give an overview of Looker and then Looker for Panoply. So next slide. So in case you're not familiar with Looker, Looker is a business intelligence tool, allows you to visualize and explore your data. And a bunch more, which I'll get into in a second. So the ways that Looker differentiates, it just summed up into three. First, data stays in your database. So when you're using Looker with Panoply, for instance, we're not going to move that data from your database. We're going to do all of the transformation in database. We're not moving that data elsewhere to a server or something like that. Looker doesn't have anywhere to store data. So the way we're able to accomplish this and leverage the power of the underlying database and the performance without moving that data to do transformations is via LookML. So LookML is the modeling layer in Looker that allows you to define your key business metrics, your table relationships, all the transformations that you want to expose to the end users in a text-based modeling language that's really an abstraction of SQL. So it's at the end of the day, we're going to expose all of your business metrics to your end users in a click and drop interface from which they can create their own reports and visualizations. And on the back end, Looker is generating SQL for the end user to be executed to the back end database. And this is all available via the web browser. So Looker is a web application. So we're leveraging modern web-based technologies to bring your business intelligence into the web, so you can access it on whatever device you want just via the browser. In the next slide, I'll just kind of go over what Looker looks like for Panoply. So first, you would be centralizing all of the data that you wanted to explore with Looker in Panoply. You'd be defining all of those metrics in LookML that you want to expose to your end users. We also have Looker blocks, which are templates for expected data sources that we see across our customers, like Salesforce or Zendesk, to get you up and running rather quickly with all of the key metrics and dashboards that you would expect, and then you can modify those from there to customize to your business. And then finally, you can explore all of the metrics you've defined in LookML in our Explorer interface, which is that click and drop interface from which everyone creates their reports from that single source of truth that you've defined in LookML. And ultimately, everyone can ask and answer their own questions because they have access to all of the metrics that they need. And they can trust them because they've been defined once in that core modeling layer. So in the next slide, we can see sort of all the other functionality that Looker has available in addition to the web interface. So we've talked about the ability to explore your data, visualize that data. Of course, you can export it. In addition to that, we also have an embedded capability. So you can take almost all of the parts of Looker, because it's a web application, and embed them as iframes in your own application, your own web portal. Make that data available to your end users in the way that you need. You also have an API, so you can surface the results from Looker and skin them however you want in your application as well. And of course, you can use our API to accomplish most of the functionality of the application. And finally, we have pretty advanced scheduling capabilities. You can schedule via email, via webhook to initiate a process. We also have an action hub where you can authenticate into third-party tools like Dropbox or Google Drive or Segment and deliver data directly there from Looker. And then finally, you can also deliver data to file systems like S3 or via SFTP. And you can also have these function alerts as well, so sending data when certain conditions have been met. And that's an introduction on Looker, and I'll pass it back.
Fantastic. Aron and Adrian, please take us through the next portion.
Great. Hey, this is Aron Clymer. Next slide is just a little introduction to DataClymer. I'm the founder of DataClymer. We're a boutique data services firm. And I personally have been doing data and analytics for over a decade. I originally built an analytics team at Salesforce that serviced the entire product organization and really drove product strategy for the company for about 8 years. I was also heading up data and analytics at Pop Sugar. And at both places, my goal was really to instill a data-driven culture. So I've taken that experience and that sort of vision to this firm that I founded. We have a really strong team at DataClymer, really a lot of good, strong data engineering and analytics and business intelligence experience. Our lead data engineer, for instance, has over 20 years of data warehousing and ETL experience. So what we do for our clients is install full data stacks, modern cloud data warehouse environments. We also help with actionable content, analytics, and sort of go that last mile where we do a lot of training and making sure that every employee, our clients, companies really understand the data and really answer their own questions self-service as much as possible, so that you really do drive this data culture where everybody is getting quick answers to their questions, making fast decisions, all data driven, and really expanding the company in all directions. I think we're going to hand it over to Adrian here on the latest scoop. So we engage with the latest scoop on this particular project that we're talking about, and I'll let Adrian take it away, and then I'll come back later and I'll be talking about some of the results.
Perfect, thanks, Aaron. Hi, everybody. I'm Adrian, Director of Operations at the latest scoop, and I've been with them for about 3 years now. So the latest scoop, as was mentioned, it did start off as a pop-up concept in 2004 as a way that the founder was trying to refresh and revitalize retail that she felt was becoming quite boring and typical. So when it was a pop-up model, the only way for people to be able to find out about where it was if they had been with the store or was recommended by a friend of theirs and joined our email list. And then we'd send something out and they'd be able to find us in a new neighborhood closer to them or further away. And throughout the years, we've amassed tens of thousands of emails, which was kind of the main key driver to our success back then, and to this day still is. I mean, obviously, we've taken email marketing to new heights since then, but still very much what we're focused on. And eventually, it just got to the point where we had to stay open due to popular demand. Over the years, having opened in many different neighborhoods over Vancouver, we naturally started to identify areas that customers particularly resonated with our brand and the concept itself. And because of that, we just found ourselves reopening in those locations time and time again, but still very much for limited engagement. Since I come on board, there was 2 semi-permanent locations, and they had handshake deals with the landlords. But at the same time, those locations just worked out really well, and the customers kept asking us, "Where did you guys go? Why aren't you guys here? Please stay here." So since then, we've developed 4 permanent locations in Vancouver. We just opened our 5th store in Toronto, and we've got a 6th opening early 2019. What's really been a driver for business at the latest scoop has been our buying, our merchandising, and our customer service. We've been fortunate enough to have some of the most talented buyers in the industry, as well as the way that we have a combination of pre-orders and buying in season allows us to adjust a lot quicker to fashion trends than a lot of traditional retailers. With our merchandising, we've definitely taken our lessons from the pop-up days, and we really tried to earn our customers' loyalty. When we had pop-up stores, obviously you're starting from scratch every single time, so you end up with a different product. And that's why to this day, we'll break the stores down completely twice a year and have the look change up so that when customers do come back, they're still getting that new experience and keeps the repeat customers coming through. Also on a day-to-day basis throughout our stores, our merchandisers strive to develop a sense of discovery and create stories in the store to get the customers to appreciate every piece for its own uniqueness and different ways that they can see it being worn on their day-to-day lives. And of course, with most industries, customer service is at the top of our mind. We always want customers coming in and making sure that they get a unique experience with us. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so our target market is actually quite broad. I'd say the core of the market is 24 to 38-year-old women. But depending on our geographic regions that we're in, we've always been able to adapt to them. Some of our more suburban-based stores, you'll find a 16-year-old girl with her 40-something-year-old mother trying on the same product, or they'll have their own unique pieces as well too. But it's just always been something we've been able to adjust with. Obviously, we manage our KPIs quite closely. It's something that's been really important for us to measure how we're doing as we're moving forward. I mean, in the past few years, we've had a significant amount of growth, but it's also become a different way that we're needing to look at what numbers are really being generated from each location and how we can look at them. Up until recently, we were having to pull raw data in CSV formats and manipulate them in Excel to be able to find the answers to our questions. And when we're scaling up, we've just found this become like a pain point for us that needed to be answered. And moving forward, the latest Scoop plans to increase its foothold in Toronto, as well as other major cities in Canada and down into the United States. And of course, we're working on our e-commerce as well too. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. So the top 5 reasons why we wanted to build out our data system is we just found ourselves starting to ask a lot of questions, and we needed the answers for them. So one thing we were really longing for was being able to get some sort of real-time performance visibility into how our locations are doing. I don't really want to know how I performed yesterday. I want to know how I'm performing right now so that I'm able to correct the trend before it becomes a failure. And that's something that's been really exciting to be able to achieve with Aron utilizing Panoply and Looker for us. We're able to get data up to as close as 15 minutes up to real time. So an example of this would be, say, our conversion. So how many customers we have coming in the store to how many invoices were being generated. If we wanted to know how we're doing at any particular hour throughout the day, we'd have to start going into our raw data sources and generate 2 reports for every location that we're doing and have those built out. So obviously that's a lot of man hours to be able to do that on a regular basis. And this is something that's now been alleviated for us. Also, we wanted to have a 360-degree view of the business, but we just didn't have a place where data was consolidated. So you're constantly logging into multiple systems and just, again, downloading those CSV files. Whereas now, with the data warehouse and Looker, it's as if everything's just sitting there in one place for you, which I feel like these days is how everybody has this expectation. It's just the reality of building something out to be able to get you to that point when you're utilizing different systems is a big barrier for a lot of people. We also wanted to have the ability to create any metric and view the data that will best serve our business. I found this invaluable for us. I don't want to be stuck in a situation where somebody tells me the best way to define my data, or we're only going to be as good as the next guy that's using it. Currently with our inventory management system, we had an analytics platform that was built into it, but there's also, I mean, obviously thousands of other people that are using this data, and there's no flexibility to be able to look at data in new ways. by utilizing Looker, we were able to have this ad hoc reporting and just in a very intuitive way. And as Aron mentioned, all the metrics are defined the same way. So if anybody within marketing is looking at it, or retail operations, we know that we're utilizing the same data and we're speaking the same language, which is very important for us because a lot of the people that work in the company come from more creative roles or customer service oriented roles and have grown up through the company and don't necessarily have a lot of analytical skills. And it really, it's been a good way for us to put data in the hands of everybody in a way that they're able to explore it themselves and still get value out of it. And obviously this is probably like the biggest benefit, but the one that nobody really thinks about is being able to have a scalable solution with no low maintenance. We are still a growing company. We don't have or want the ability to have an in-house data team that's constantly managing this for us. So working with Aron was really valuable to be able to identify if Panoply is a good system to work with Looker for us. So I don't really have to worry or be concerned about those things. And yeah, the next slide. So yeah, before Panoply, like I mentioned, we had, it's called Lightspeed Analytics. And just to like summarize it again, is the only advantage we really had from it was being able to look at data in hindsight and not being able to put that information in the hands of my store managers who are on the floor with the customers and with their staff and able to monitor KPIs that might indicate that they're able to change something in that moment that might save that day's sales and hit our target. Which is something that's been really exciting to work towards and put in my staff's hands. And yeah, we couldn't combine data sets. Just having like a decentralized place was really time consuming for us and unrealistic. And we just found that even though we had questions, we weren't answering it because there's just not enough time to run reports. We're still all wearing multiple hats, and it was something that fell by the wayside, and it's just really something that you can't afford to have fall by the wayside these days. And we couldn't create new metrics just because it was defined by somebody else, and it's a locked system. So if you want to get creative, then you're still stuck with downloading multiple reports and using VLOOKUPs and pivot tables in order to find your answers quickly. And I think that's it for me. I would pass it off to you, Aron.
Thanks, Adrian. Excellent. Yeah, let's talk about now what kind of powerful data and analytics the latest Scoop has in front of them now, the solution. So, again, now they have a white box sort of cloud data solution, Panoply Looker. All the data is centralized in one place. So, so we have these sort of abilities now that we've been talking about and eating throughout this webinar. On the left-hand side, for instance, is one graph that we created that shows daily sales, blue bars, right alongside with traffic conversion that Adrian was mentioning before as the red trend line. So again, right in one place, can analyze sales and how traffic might be impacting store sales. And again, you can do this per store or overall in aggregate because Looker and the way we've modeled all the data just gives the latest Scoop access to all the raw data, all in one place. As far as seeing data any way they want, now Adrian and team, one of their biggest asks was, in the old system, we could only report on sales and inventory with the catch that if there were no particular sales against some inventory during a particular time frame, we actually couldn't see all the inventory. Well, now, because we can sort of take advantage of some of Looker's advanced features, we can create these reports that allow end users to filter a query, filter the sales data with a sales filter, but that does not filter out inventory. On the left-hand side in the lower quadrant there, just a screenshot of an example of that kind of report where there's a sales date filter at the top showing the last 1 day of sales, and then we're looking at a particular store, and we're looking at inventory that has a quantity greater than 0, meaning there is inventory in the store. And then the results down below, it's a little bit hard to see, but basically the top rows are rows that had sales yesterday, and the bottom rows, there's a couple scarves down there that did not have any sales, but we're still showing it in the report with a little in inventory. And I know that sounds simple, but it's actually a little harder to do, and it's not typical of the way you would query data in a standard BI tool or reporting tools. That's why sort of in the old system that was impossible to do, and now we're able to do that kind of stuff. And a little bit later, I'm going to dive into some more of the details of exactly how we do that. And finally, no database administrator required. There's a full data stack running. And especially with Panoply, there's so many added features that we've already reviewed a little bit of not only no maintenance, but a lot of the smarts built into Panoply, optimizing performance and doing a lot of things for us that Adrian should never have to worry about. All right, next slide. So I wanted to actually step back before I dive into a little more details of the sort of technical solution. I wanted to step back and just kind of everybody sort of just realize where we are today in the evolution of data and analytics with the technology. It's amazing. You know, I have a lot of personal stories of data warehousing, especially at the enterprise level, being really a luxury. I'd say 10 years ago. For instance, I was at Salesforce 10 years ago, and we had a team of about 10 data engineers building a enterprise data warehouse on Oracle on-premise. Even though Salesforce was the largest cloud company in the world, we did a lot of on-prem data analytics because there really wasn't good cloud solutions. And we spent millions of dollars building up a data warehouse. On top of the actual effort to get all of the data into one place, the performance was a big problem. We had to transform a lot of data with many, many steps to get it to a small enough size that a report would run in a reasonable time. And some of the in the back end, when you create these database systems, you have an ETL tool or ELT tool, which I saw there was a question about that, meaning an extract, transform, and load tool. These are tools that take data in the raw form and will often transform it into a way that's makes it easier to report on, but also often aggregate it. So we would take a million row table and aggregate it down to 1,000 rows in a summary form so that a reporting tool can query 1,000 rows and it would be fast. The problem is that takes a lot of engineering effort, and some of these back-end jobs that would run to do the transforms every day could take up to sometimes almost 24 hours. So you run out of time in the day to process all your data, to prepare it for end users. And the other problem is now your data is a day old. And on top of that, every time you transform data in terms of aggregation, you lose information because you're removing some of the details from the raw data. So all this stuff was needed 10 years ago at great cost and sometimes a year or two of time to implement these things. Today, with these amazing tools, all in the cloud, all managed, spin up instantly, I think it's just incredible because these days we can spin up a full data stack in just days sometimes. So it's a beautiful thing, and this is kind of where we are today. And I think that's the message from all of this, is that any company really can access this technology now, and any company can become fully data driven, centralize all their data into a data warehouse like Panoply, and query the raw data. You really don't often need aggregations to keep performance, because these cloud columnar databases are extremely fast, and they're built specifically for analytics and reporting. And so they just fly. And on top of that, with Panoply's additional performance enhancements, it's just I think it's amazing. So I'm really enjoying being in this field. All right, let's go to the next slide. So for the latest scoop and for this project, how did we evaluate Panoply? Well, really, whenever I hear we have no data team, we have no technical resources, and we really just want something sort of managed for us, Panoply is the top pick because it solves exactly that problem. Not only is it built on modern cloud data warehousing technology, but it's hosted, managed. Really don't have to think about it; it just works. So that was kind of the number one reason we chose Panoply. Predictable pricing is another really valuable thing about Panoply. A lot of the other solutions out there will charge based on usage, and you often really have a hard time predicting that, and it's quite variable, and of course grow dramatically over time. As data is democratized and cultures are changed, which is a great thing for culture, but it's a bad thing for the price tag. So this is kind of a nice solution, predictable pricing. We also knew we wanted to implement Looker as well, and Looker plays extremely well with Panoply. Panoply supports all of Looker's advanced features and so forth, so they really just really play well together, and so it was a really optimal data stack for. Right, next slide. So what did we do when we started this project? And this is typical of any company. Especially when you're looking at Panoply, the predictable pricing comes in part from knowing how many data sources you're going to connect to. So you do want to count up how many data sources you have. We actually identified quite a few data sources for the latest scoop. We wanted to iterate through this and not turn it into a larger project than it needed to be to start out with. So we identified the top two priority sources of data. The first one was this sales system called Lightspeed that we referred to a few times. And there's another system called SMS that tracks source. So as we've shown you in some of the examples, we definitely wanted to bring these two sources together. So getting Panoply spun up and ready to go was literally a 5-minute process. That was the simple part. What took a little longer in this case was the actual source connections, and that's because whereas Panoply has 150 plus connectors, and a lot of the tools out there have pre-built connectors to a lot of popular software packages, there was nothing out there on the market for the specific POS system or the traffic system that we're referring to here. So that's where a lot of the expertise of DataClymer comes in as well. We had familiarity with a particular open source framework called Singer, which we could build the connector from scratch on, and Panoply integrates very seamlessly with all sorts of other tools. We were able to actually integrate seamlessly through another tool called Stitch Data, which sort of easily reads Singer connections and feeds data directly into Panoply. So other than the coding of the connector itself, everything else was all cloud and very seamless. Again, Panoply performed perfectly. We would send data in from these sources, and Panoply would immediately automatically create all the tables we needed and optimize them as well. So we didn't really have to do any data warehousing or data administration or database work. It was just created automatically for us. All right, next slide. Okay, so the next step, once we had the connectors built, we had the data flowing in to Panoply. It's all centralized, and we had all historical data as well, by the way. So then we hook up Looker. So Looker easily connects to Amazon Redshift among tens and tens of other data warehouse systems, and Panoply runs Redshift under the covers, so it's very easy to just connect Looker directly using the Looker Redshift here. So again, another 5 minutes, and we had the connection running. And the very last step for this particular stack, it was to model the data in Looker. Because Looker is a platform, And it allows the developer to develop any kind of view or transformation or whatever is necessary for the end users to have an intuitive data set with which to work. And so that was the last step. And that's again something that DataClymer has. And we've been doing Looker development for years. And just very familiar with the Looker modeling language. It's a very simple markup language on top of it as well. So we're able to quickly model data and start producing reports and graphs to start out with, the dashboards. The left-hand side is just a quick example of something you can do in Looker where we're showing this is hourly stored traffic for the last 7 days or during a 7-day time frame compared to the same days the week prior, all showed in one graph. Looker makes this kind of thing easy because you can create some easily indicate which dates to show on the same graph and so forth. So it's very programmable, very, very flexible. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I was going to get a little more into some of the more advanced features we used to deliver the required results to the latest scoop. We've talked a little bit about merging two data sets together and analyzing data from multiple sources. There's actually a lot of ways to do that. And Looker has one very simple and powerful feature, which was released with great fanfare last year, called Merge Results. And this is a way to actually take two data sets that we may not have modeled in any other way together by just creating two different queries for each data set and then joining them together or merging them on a common key. In this case, the key is just the date. So this is on the sort of the way this works is we first build a query in Looker for daily sales. That's the blue bar chart being shown there. And you can kind of see in the merge results section of the screenshot on the left-hand side, we have this sales report that's based on, or summarizes by sales by date. And we're choosing that date to be merged into another query we built in Looker. And by built, I mean about a 1-minute process to create a report that reports on sales traffic store traffic by day. So we just merged the two together, we joined it on the day. And on top of that, what I haven't shown here, but the subtlety, and again, I think the power of a tool like Looker is that the red dot is not simply foot traffic, conversion rate that Adrian mentioned earlier. So it's sort of how sales have been converted based on foot traffic. Well, that's actually a calculation. And in this case, it's a calculation being done across those two data sets after they're merged. This is all using Looker without any programming. It's very simple to create a calculated field, almost like an Excel. So we take a couple numbers, we divide them, we create a ratio, and we conversion rate per day. So this is just a really powerful feature of Looker that I love. The alternative, and probably what we'll do in the future down the road with this particular project, is we can do this joining of these two data sets under the covers more programmatically, probably based on date and store as well. But we could do it so that the end users wouldn't even have to do this merge. They could just start sort of looking at both combined in this whole data set. So there's just lots of different ways to handle this. But the idea is that as long as the data is in the same data warehouse, like Panoply, it's really pretty easy to look at these data sets across the board. And as we bring in more and more data sets, like even financial data and other kinds of data, we can do the same thing and merge together 3, 4, 5 data sets. That's the real power of these kind of systems. Okay, next slide. Another really nice feature of Looker is called templated filters. And in a nutshell, this is just a kind of a programmatic way for us to control exactly where a filter might be applied on a specific query. So I'm going to get a little bit technical for those of you that know SQL, but that's not necessary to understand SQL. In a standard query, any kind of tool, whenever you add a filter to a filter section or you apply a filter to a query, it usually is applied to the entire query. And that was something we didn't want in this case. If you recall, we were looking, this is the example of show all inventory regardless of whether there are sales or not inside inventory. So in order to do that with Looker, we created some templated filters, which again, for the non-technical folks, it's just a special field that we would expose in the Looker interface. The end user can select that field. In this case, it's that first filter in the filter section at the top that you see, and we can name these fields whatever we want in Looker. So we put a little parentheses filter next to it to indicate that it's a special kind of filter. And so the way this works is if the end user uses that filter, the query will run, and the first thing it will do is look at all the sales data, and it'll filter it for, in this case, one complete day. So it'll take that filter, only apply it to the sales data, and then join the results to inventory data and show the final result below in the table that you see. So it sounds easy, but to get that kind of query to work, technically you have to put the filter on the join clause of a statement instead of the where clause. And again, the where clause is sort of the normal place that filters are usually inserted because they would apply to the entire data set. That's not what we wanted. So really flexible, and we can sort of generate some really complex results under the covers. That's really simple for the end users to use because, again, Looker overall will generate SQL behind the scenes. It allows users to essentially generate SQL, which creates a live warehouse in this case and returns the results, so they're always up to date, and the complications are all abstracted away. Okay, next slide. And finally, I did want to just spend a few minutes talking about persistent tables. You know, this is something that we actually try not to do if we can help it. Is just essentially adding more tables to the data model in the data warehouse. But sometimes it really helps, not only from a performance standpoint, but from an sort of maintainability standpoint. And so there's actually two ways to do this with this particular stack. You know, Panoply actually supports materialized views. And again, all that means is an extra table that is generated after your data is loaded on a regular basis. And it's usually to either simplify, sometimes it's to aggregate and summarize, like I was mentioning before. But we really try to stay away from summarizing, because anytime you summarize in a table, you're losing information. So we don't want to do that. We always want the users to have all information at their fingertips. But in this case, we did want to take, for instance, inventory data and create a single table for that. The reason is the way the point of sale system exposes data. There's about 30 tables in our data warehouse that we end up with. Maybe 7 of them or 8 of them are specific to inventory. What we'd rather do is take those 7 tables and just merge them together into one table. It makes it faster. These databases really want fewer joins, like fewer different tables joined together. The less tables you join together, the faster they are. If you can get it all into one table, that's actually really fast. Just the way these cloud data warehouses are architected. And then for the Looker developer, it's also nice because then you're only dealing with one table as you sort of model out your final code in Looker and expose the final data set. It's easier to work with one table than with 8 tables. So we could have done this with Panoply, but Looker has the same feature. It's called persisted tables. There's a couple different ways to do it in Looker. But the nice thing about doing it with Looker, since we're using Looker, is that it preserves a lot of the logic that we've already built into Looker. So a lot of the calculations for fields, a lot of the extra fields we've created to make end users' lives easier, those all get perpetuated into these persisted tables when we use Looker. So that's down below is just a little bit of a sampling of what the code can look like in Looker to do this. It's very simple, as you can see. Really just creating a view file and defining the name of a table, and then just defining some columns. And it's what's not shown is that the source of all of this is somewhere else in Looker, but essentially what this does when it runs is it generates a SQL statement that joins all these 8 tables together, outputs these columns we've listed into the resulting persistent table. And again, persisted by persisted, I mean an actual table in the warehouse in Panoply that is then tuned and compressed, and Panoply can do all of the fancy things that it does to make sure that the table is really fast to query. So really just really nice, subtle under the covers feature that allows everything to go faster and allows the system to be maintained longer and easier over time as we build out more and more code on the Looker side. And the end users just get a better experience overall. So again, all 3 of those, the last 3 slides were some of the more advanced features we were using to make this system even more powerful and to deliver exactly what Adrian and the latest group needed in order to get a leg up ahead of the competition, having these more advanced analytics. I think that's my last slide. Yep, thank you.
Fantastic, thanks so much. We wanted to open it up to questions and answers now. There have been a few questions come in. Thank you, Aron, for already answering the one about ETL. I did answer it also in the thing and gave a link. And then another thing about Q&A, we will post a post to the Panoply community with all of the questions if we're not able to get to all of them today. And that will be a part of the follow-up email. So in terms of questions I'm seeing, let me, I don't see any new ones. So go ahead, if you have them, go ahead and ask them in WebEx, but I also have a few others. This one's for Aron from Clymer. When SMBs with data needs are looking to scope out a data stack, what are the most common questions they're trying to answer? So with the latest scoop, you know, it's kind of retail and sales conversions, but what are some other kind of what are some other questions you see them trying to answer? And also, what should they know? You mentioned knowing what their data sources are, but what should they know going in?
Oh yeah, thanks. This is Aron Clymer again. Yeah, actually, we've worked with quite a few retailers and retail-related customers, and it's actually, you know, retail specifically. Retail is very much about trends, as you can imagine. So looking for even intraday trends, as Adrian was alluding to as well, you know, really understanding as fast as possible what's happening on the ground in terms of products that might be super hot all of a sudden is really important, right? You really want to get on top of that and really maximize your profit. You can easily lose out on and leave a lot of money on the table if you can't identify trends quickly. So that's why near real-time data is so important, I think, for retailers. The other thing for retailers specifically is seasonality is, you know, super important as well. And so it's often even better to compare like sales or data or sort of patterns of any kind of the data you have against the same exact time frame the previous year rather than even the previous week or the previous month. So seasonal. So if we wanted to look at sales yesterday and see how we were really doing, you know, assuming that you can, you know, things haven't changed too dramatically in the year for the business, you can compare same exact day last year, you know, so Wednesday this year versus the same Wednesday last year can really reveal a lot of insights. So we're often developing reports that do exactly that, and we can actually do a lot of coding in Looker that automatically creates, you know, calculates what exact day you should be using to compare. So it's really easy for the users to say, hey, compare the same day last year and handle all these things like leap years and all the complications of figuring out exactly what date you should be looking at. And then the other thing I'd say is that we have also a lot of high-tech clients, and they're really looking for more like feature adoption of products. So event stream data and understanding what features are being used and adopted and what features are not. really help drive product strategy and figure out where software engineering teams should be focused is a really big thing they get out of the data. And for them, and this actually applies to any company, but what will behoove you the most is to really understand and think through what are actionable KPIs or actionable metrics that would really change the business. You know, what if you had an answer? You know, think about what if you had an answer even before you have the answer. They had the answer right in front of you. What decision would you make? What different action would you take that you otherwise wouldn't? If you can define what that is, then you're sure you have an actionable metric, and you're sure that getting that data is important and will be very impactful. So for product high tech companies, it's you know, maybe how many people are using a certain feature. For retailers, it's hey, if I knew there was a hot trend, you know, in it, here's what I would do.
Great, thank you. And then for Adrian at the latest scoop, what competitive advantages does data or do data and insights give you now that your data stack is in place?
Yeah, so I mean, like Aron said, just the ability, especially with Looker, to be able to model your data in any way that you see fit, and to when one question is posed and answered from your original dashboard or explorers that you've built out, you're able to start bringing in other sets of data to be able to further dig into it. But sort of what I was talking about earlier on is just, I think a lot of systems that are available, especially cloud-based systems these days, to companies our size and larger, have a lot of pre-built analytic reporting tools into them. And because of that, obviously it's the company that's offering the service that's defining the way that you should be looking at your own data, as well as the fact that, like we were talked about also earlier, is that it wasn't 360 degrees. So we were only able to look at one set of data before, which was sales information on like a dollars and units basis. And now we're able to start bringing in different databases through the ETL, like our stored traffic, as well as in the future employee data. When we launch our e-commerce, the e-commerce data, and tie in all these systems together. So you're really just looking at one spot and making it really easy on the end user to get quick answers to questions or discover things that they might not know that are going on, because now we've got our dashboard set up for our KPIs to signal when something's out of line, and it just helps everybody keep everything together, and the business operates smoothly on a larger scale.
Great. And then a question for maybe both Adrian and Aron Clymer. What's next for insights in the data stack? You know, are there new data sources? Are there new things new business decisions you're looking to inform? One thing I was curious about is, do you use data to forecast and figure out when you should open up new stores, and you know which locations are more valuable than others?
Yeah, so we do have a lot of customer data from collecting email addresses, from sales transactions on the store level, and through utilizing zip codes and postal codes. That's something that I want to work with Aron moving forward to actually map out, which you can visualize on Looker, in order to determine where our customers are in relation to our current location. If there's hotspots of customers that are outside of locations that could signal potential new store locations. So yeah, there's a lot of different options that you have available to be able to achieve those avenues.
Great. That is a wrap, Sarah. I think we're ready to conclude.
All right, thank you so much. This officially concludes today's webcast. Thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.